Yes, oh yes. It was proved that I had said that an infant under 6 months old, if seen touching his parts, should not be slapped. That was the chief evidence.
What happened to you when you lost your job in New York? Were you, for instance, did you have another job to go to in America?
Well, I didn't know I should have. I was completely ostracized. No newspaper would print a word I wrote. No magazine would print a word. No hall would allow me to lecture in it. So that I was cut off from all my means of livelihood. And I couldn't get any money out of England at that time because of currency regulations. And so I was expecting to starve. I had 3 children whom I was educating, 2 of them at the university, 1 younger. And I expected we should all suffer very badly, and we should have done but for a certain man called Dr. Barnes, who came to my rescue and gave me a job.
As a result of that alarming experience, have you felt any permanent resentment against the Americans?
Oh, no, none whatever. I think, after all, my father, when he stood for Parliament in a rural constituency in 1868, suffered in exactly the same way, for exactly the same causes. And I allowed myself to reflect that urban New York in 1940 was exactly at the same point in the road towards enlightenment as rural England in 1868. But having made that remark, I felt no further resentment.
Do you ever now, in old age, encounter these explosions of anger?
Oh, yes. I had a letter from an Anglican bishop not long ago, in which he said that all my opinions on everything were inspired by sexual lust, and that the opinions I'd expressed on this subject were among the causes of the Second World War.
Do you think that on the whole the fanatics in the world are more useful or more dangerous than the skeptics?
Fanaticism is the danger of the world and always has been, and has done untold harm. No, I think fanaticism is the gravest danger there is. I might almost say that I was fanatical against fanaticism.
But then are you not fanatical also against some other things? You see, now, your current campaign, for instance, in favor of nuclear disarmament, would you encourage your supporters to undertake some of the extreme demonstrations that they undertake, and isn't that fanaticism?
I don't think that's fanaticism, no. I mean, some of them may be fanatical, but I do give them support, but not from fanatical reason. I support them because everything sane and sensible and quiet that we do is absolutely ignored by the press. And the only way we can get into the press is to do something that looks fanatical.
Do you think it possible that the anti-nuclear campaign may already be a bit out of date in the light of the preparations for bacteriological and biological warfare which we now know are going on?
It certainly would be if it was only a campaign against nuclear weapons. But it is in fact a campaign against war. And the momentary argument against war is mainly derived from nuclear weapons. But if they were out of the way, there would be other arguments that would be just as potent. And the fact is that scientific man cannot survive if he is going to continue to make war. I mean, the worst possibility is that human life may be extinguished, and it is a very real possibility, very real. And that is the worst. But assuming that doesn't happen, I can't bear the thought of many hundreds of millions of people dying in agony only and solely because the rulers of the world are stupid and wicked, and I can't bear it.
Do you look back to the 19th century on the whole with nostalgia and regret?
Well, it all depends upon what you're thinking about. The world was much more beautiful to look at than it is now. Every time I go back to a place that I knew long ago, I think, oh, how sad it is. This place used to be beautiful and now it's hideous. And one thing after another, one piece of beauty after another is destroyed. and that I do profoundly regret. But when it comes to ideas, well, there's immensely less humbug than there was, and that I rejoice in.
Of the sort of conventional self-indulgences or vices like drink and tobacco and so on, which is your favourite one?
Oh, tobacco. I smoke a pipe all day long except when I'm eating or sleeping.
Hasn't that shortened your life?
Well, they used to say it would when I first took to it, but I took to it some 70 years ago, so it doesn't seem to have had a very great effect so far. In fact, you know, on one occasion it saved my life. I was in an airplane, and a man was getting a seat for me, and I said, get me a seat in the smoking part, so if I can't smoke I shall die. And sure enough, there was an accident, a bad accident, and all the people in the non-smoking part of the plane were drowned. And the people in the smoking part jumped into the Norwegian fjord where we landed and were saved, so that I owe my life to smoking.
Did you have to swim to save your life?
Oh yes, we all had to.
And did you think great thoughts about death and survival when you were actually swimming?
No, I was rung up by a journalist in Copenhagen, and he said, what did you think while you were swimming in the fjord? So I said, I thought the water was cold. And he said, did you not think about mysticism and logic? And I said, no, and rang off.
Did all this happen a great many years ago?
Not a great many, I think it was about 1949, as far as I can remember.
When you were in your late 70s?
Yes.
Have you, in your 87th year, any unfulfilled ambitions?
Oh, well, of course, there are all sorts of things I should like to have written and haven't written yet. I mean, almost every day I think of some new subject I should like to have written a book about, but there isn't time to write them all.
Have you written an autobiography?
I have, yes.
Is it up to date?
Well, no, not quite.
Are you going to allow it to be published in your lifetime?
No, not till I'm dead.
Why?
Well, in the first place, because it won't be complete until then. And in the second place, because there are all sorts of things that ought not to be said too soon, and it may even have to wait some time after I'm dead, I don't know.
One last question. Suppose, Lord Russell, this film were to be looked at by our descendants, like a Dead Sea Scroll in 1,000 years' time. What would you think it's worth telling that generation about the life you've lived and the lessons you've learned from it?
I should like to say two things. One intellectual and one moral. The intellectual thing I should want to say to them is this. When you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. Never let yourself be diverted either by what you would wish to believe or by what you think would have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts. That is the intellectual thing that I should wish to say. The moral thing I should wish to say to them is very simple. I should say, love is wise, hatred is foolish. In this world, which is getting more and more closely interconnected, we have to learn to tolerate each other. We have to learn to put up with the fact that some people say things that we don't like. We can only live together in that way. And if we are to live together and not die together, we must learn a kind of charity and a kind of tolerance, which is absolutely vital to the continuation of human life on this planet.